Hello there, and many thanks for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlimli on digital address GA0992539. I beg your pardon. Our leading stories this hour. Presidency interdicts a national security operative for allegedly assaulting a military officer. This comes hours after the minority spokesperson on Interior and Defense demanded action, along with some security analysts. We'll tell you the details of the statement released by government a short while ago. Also, over 109,000 security operatives are casting their ballots ahead of next week's polls when they get busy policing the ballots. We're live at the various polling stations as Tema East heats up with the arrest of the NDC parliamentary candidate there. We're on the ground. We'll bring you the details. Also coming up, government announces scholarships for free SHS graduates entering universities starting next year. The announcement comes a few hours after the opposition NDC announced their free tertiary plans as an addition to their manifesto. We'll give you the details. Also coming up today is World AIDS Day. We'll talk to medical doctors and people living with HIV/AIDS on how they are keeping up so far and how our fight against the virus is going. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Lu, affordable, safe sanitation. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on our YouTube page and also on our social media platforms, especially on Facebook. You can get us there. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Your thoughts are welcome on 0540-109-009. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the show. I'll take you through the details and more. Now, the presidency has interdicted a national security operative for allegedly assaulting a military officer. This statement released by government comes hours after the minority spokesperson on Interior and Defense, James Sagalga, demanded action, along with some security analysts who over the past few days have also been demanding same. Let's take a look at the statement and give you the details as it states. The statement is dated December 1, 2020, and it states, let me go through it from the first paragraph, number one. The President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has learned with dismay reports of an attack on a soldier by an official of the Bureau of National Communications of the National Security Council Secretariat, Gerard Nana Osei Tutu. Is the second statement. The second paragraph says, upon the President's instruction, the ministry responsible for national security, has interdicted with immediate effect the said Mr. Gerard Nana Osei Tutu and has commenced a full investigation into the incident. The military constitutes a key layer in the country's security architecture, and any infringement on the institution and its officers will not be tolerated. It is signed by the Information Minister, Kojo Opon Nkrumah, right there. Now, that statement was just released a few hours before we came on air. It's about an hour before we came on air. That story has been run in the past week. And earlier, we had Mr. James Sagalga make that appeal make that demand for government to take action. We can bring you that statement, or we can bring you that interview by Mr. James Sagalga in which he makes that demand shortly.
We are reliably informed that the warrant officer class 1, Mashoud Salia, was driving in a saloon car from the Tema area towards Michel Camp, where he is a physical instructor with the 1BN, 1st Battalion of Infantry. Whilst on his way, after negotiating the turn at the Ashaman roundabout, we are informed that 4 vehicles, which were blaring their sirens, drove into the packed traffic and sought to maneuver their way through. The soldier, in an attempt to give way to the oncoming blaring vehicles, decided to pull aside. But the traffic, we are told, was so thick to the extent that he just couldn't do otherwise but to continue driving in the lane. All of a sudden, the occupants of the 4 vehicles crossed the soldier in question, pulled out their guns, pointed same at him, dragged him out of his car and beat him up mercilessly. This incident happened in the full glare of the public. We are again informed that after the men suspected to be operatives of the national security outfit beat the soldier to pulp, handcuffed him, and drove to the Michel camp, where they then handed him over to the commander of the 1B and 1 Lieutenant Colonel Nyante. Warrant Officer Class 1 Mashoud Salia. I've tried to make contact with him to no avail, but I've spoken to people who are connected with him, and they have actually confirmed that the media publications are indeed true. Look, at the moment, our armed forces feels disrespected. This cannot happen to a serving soldier in uniform. The man was uniformed. The minority in parliament is very shocked and worried with the brazen nature of the attack that was unleashed by these men suspected to be coming from the national security outfit. Unfortunately, long after the Ayawaso West Oregon by-election debacle, which witnessed the invasion and attacks unleashed on innocent citizens by people who were dressed in brown uniforms unknown to any of our security agencies, these same men in brown khaki uniforms continue to rear their ugly heads, and this time around the attack has been unleashed on a uniformed serving soldier. It's very shocking. The brazen nature of attack gives us some sense that in the lead up to the election, there is the real likelihood that these elements would be unleashed to cause mayhem on the electorate. That for us is very worrying. And so we would call on the authorities, the minister responsible for national security, to immediately bring to book those individuals who wore brown uniforms on that occasion and attacked the Warrant Officer Class 1 Mashoud Salia without any provocation. We are reliably informed that the Warrant Officer Class 1 Mashoud Salia was driving in a saloon car from the Tema area towards Michel camp, where he is a physical instructor with the 1B and 1st Battalion of Infantry. Whilst on his way, after negotiating the turn at the Ashaman roundabout, we are informed that 4 vehicles which were blaring their sirens drove into the packed traffic and sought to maneuver their way through. The soldier, in an attempt to give way to the oncoming blaring vehicles, decided to pull aside. But the traffic, we are told, was so thick to the extent that he just couldn't do otherwise but to continue driving in the lane. All of a sudden, the occupants of the 4 vehicles crossed the soldier in question, pulled out their guns, pointed same at him, dragged him out of his car and beat him up mercilessly. This incident happened in the full glare of the public. We are again informed that after the men suspected to be operatives of the national security outfit beat the soldier to pulp, handcuffed him, and drove to the Michel camp, where they then handed him over to the commander of the 1B.
James Agaga is the minority spokesperson on Interior and Defense. It's certainly a developing story. We're here to bring you, or to keep you updated. Meanwhile, this is your election headquarters. Now, about 109,000 security operatives are casting their ballot as we speak. We have less than 2 hours to the end of polls, by which time we'll bring you a special simulcast where we broadcast both radio and television together to bring you an update of what's been happening and the analysis as it goes. But let's start by taking you around the country for what's happening. You know what's been happening right now. Tema East has been heated. We understand that a few issues happened up in the upper west region. We'll bring you details because it was subsequently resolved. But right now, let's begin with the upper east region, where Electoral Commission officials took their time to create markings on the ground to ensure that social distancing was observed during the special voting there. Now, voting over there has been smooth at the premises of the House of Chiefs with no incident so far. 831 persons are expected to cast their vote by end of day in the Bolgatanga Central constituency. About half the number have voted so far. Albert Sori is our man on the ground, and he joins us with the latest. Hello, Albert. Well, I do have, I think, about 5 of our correspondents online, as you can see there. Albert, I'm going to start with you. What is the latest?
Yes, Gifted. So, as at this time, we have more than 650 of the voters who are expected to vote today. Remember, in the Bolgatanga Central constituency, 831 special voters will be casting their ballot by the end of the day today. So more than 650 of them have voted so far. There's been no incident whatsoever. The only thing was the Electoral Commission officials are trying to make sure that social distancing is maintained. Now, in the morning, what I realized while I was there was that even though the Electoral Commission officials kept telling people to maintain the social distancing, some people seem to often forget, and then they will just get crowded, in the queue. So after some time, towards 10 a.m., when the numbers had reduced a little bit, they then took time to just draw some lines on the ground, sort of 6 meters apart, just to make sure that people stand on the lines, on those lines they drew, in the queue, so that that social distancing is maintained.
Very well.
So then you also have the one of the officials, checking the temperature of voters who arrived there, ensure that they washed their hands, put on their face masks before they joined the queue. So it's been basically smooth in Bolga Central. Across the Upper East region, we are expecting 5,950 special voters to cast their ballots today. And through the reporters who will be covering the various constituencies for us as well in the Upper East region, we've been checking with them, and the indications are that so far across the region, there has been no major incident whatsoever. It's been generally smooth.
Albert, thank you very much. We have barely 2 hours to closing of polls. We certainly will be raising you back online. So let me leave you to rest for us over there. Let's move to the Upper West region, where the regional chairman of the New Patriotic Party, SB Kangbere, was expressed satisfaction of the conduct of the special voting exercise there. A total of 3,459 persons are expected to cast their ballot in that region. And speaking to us earlier, he stated that he was really impressed with the orderly manner of the process. We'll soon hear him, but before that, let's speak to our correspondent Rafiq Salam, who has been speaking to him. But Rafiq, take us through how the day has gone so far. It's almost less than about 2 hours where the polls close. What's been happening so far? Rafiq, looks like you are muted. Let's hear the chairman of the NPP who spoke to him earlier.
Oh, it's, what I can see so far is so good, and I'm sure that by the end of the day, we'll be smiling.
You talk about the process so far. Is it okay?
It's okay from what I have seen. No hitches, no foul talk. Everything seems to be going well. So yeah, I'm pleased with what is happening so far.
In terms of safety protocols for COVID-19, you observe that?
Well, you can see that I'm fully masked, and so are you. So I would say yes, to a large degree, yes.
Over 90% of the people who are supposed to vote here, 867 people are supposed to vote here. Majority of them, 90% of them are security personnel.
Okay.
But do you think that it's enough? Security here is okay?
I think the security is okay. I don't see any reason to doubt. I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
What other message do you have for us that I didn't ask you about?
Okay. But you journalists, I'm sure you are going to do a fair and impartial reporting. And as far as the personnel, those coming to vote, I believe that everybody is responsible enough that they do their civic duty properly without fear or favor. So we are on course. You know that the victory is ours, so I'm not panicking at all.
Fair and impactful reporting it shall be. Let's hear from the WA Central Member of Parliament, Dr. Rashid Hassan Pelpo. He's also saying that he's impressed with the process so far. This was as of the time that my colleague Rafiq Salam spoke to him. Listen.
I've noticed an orderly process here, but just in one of the stations, there's a complaint that people have multiple names appearing on the register, which is something of a serious concern. Otherwise, I think that so far so good in the process. There's order and there's discipline.
What about the COVID safety protocols?
I can see that social distancing is one thing that is lacking. There's no social distancing, but people are trying hard to wear masks. Only a few come here without masks. And maybe it's a character of where mask wearing is not one of the features. One of the things that we observe very much. But on the whole, it's good.
Let's stay with the Savannah region. We'll tell you what's been happening there. What you heard there was Rashid Pelpo, who was raising some concerns about some two names that seem to have appeared twice there. Let me take you to OT region. Peter Seno is standing by. Peter, what's happening? Hello, Peter, can you hear me? Peter, I think you're muted.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, Peter, okay. Go ahead.
So far, yeah, 138 persons of the security and other special duty voters have cast their ballot so far. Out of 185 for where I am monitoring now. The region has 2,795 persons who are supposed to cast their vote in the region. But I'm monitoring issues, situation from the Akan constituency here in the OT region, where 138 have cast their ballot so far. For COVID-19 protocols, as we indicated earlier, everything has been smooth and easy officials here and show. But even those who come without nose or face mask have been provided with one to wear before they enter the yard proper. There's one man stationed at the entrance who says that hand washing and then the temperature is checked before they enter the main yard to go through the process to take their ballot papers and cast their vote. But before I let go of you, I have representatives of the NPP and then the NDC here who want to share their opinion.
Okay, let's make that
so far.
Right, let's make that brief. Let's make that brief as we need to cross over to the other
briefly, 1 minute.
regions.
So the process so far, what is your impression?
Well, everything has been very smooth. And then we are hoping that it will continue till the end.
You are monitoring. You have been here since morning.
Yeah.
The machines and then everything. You are okay with it?
Yeah, I'm okay with the machine. The machine is working well. So I don't have any problem with the machines and then the procedure. Everything is going on.
Right. So that is the NDC. Let me have the MPP representative here speak to us. What is your impression so far with the process?
Everything is okay. It's going on smoothly.
So what do you hope to see on election day?
We hope to see the same thing appear on the election day.
All right. So, Gifted, that has been some representatives. I mean, the MPP and the NDC party agents who are here monitoring issues for their party here in the Akan constituency, Gifted.
Like I said, in less than 2 hours, we'll be crossing over once again to find out when the polls actually close. So I'll leave you to rest on that one. Thank you. We'll still stay in that part of the country. We're going right now to the Volta region. Ivy said Toji. Ivy says 7,325 people were expected to vote in her area. Ivy is joining us via Zoom as well. Hello, Ivy. Ivy, there were a few people who could not find their names on the register at Ho West. Tell us how that was resolved.
Yes, so after the time we were leaving Ho West, that would this security men still couldn't find their names in the register. They did everything.
Ivy, I am losing you.
Through the phone, but nothing.
Ivy, I'm losing you, but what I'm hearing you say is that a while ago when you left Ho, okay, someone on Zoom has their sound up.
So they couldn't find their names in the register, and it was not rectified because according to the EC officials, there was nothing they could do about it. So after the time we were leaving, the security officers had to leave the place because there was nothing the EC officers could do about the issue. There were 3 security officers who couldn't find their names on the register.
So those 3 people have not been able to vote. Did they go back home?
Yes, after the time we were there, they were not able to cast their votes.
Okay. Well, hopefully they will be able to resolve that before next week. Ivy, thank you very much. Ivy Setoji with her update for us in the Volta region. She says that at the particular polling station she reported from, 3 of the security officers were unable to cast their ballot because their names were not found in the system. Let's go to Savannah region. Isaac Nonya is there. Over there as well, we were told that the security personnel was turned away for non-adherence to the COVID-19 protocols at the Damongo police station, where voters, including some 3 security officials, were those people who became victims to that situation. Let me hear from our correspondent Isaac Nonya. Isaac, how was that resolved? Did they finally get masks? I believe that was a problem. Isaac, you are muted, so unmute and let's hear you.
Can you hear me?
I do. Please go ahead. Tell us how the issue was resolved. The 3 officers who were turned away, did they come back with masks to vote?
Yes, they did come back due to the help of their colleagues who were just by the police station by coming out with 3 of the no masks for them to be able to vote. Beyond that, the EC got to realize that the number keep on increasing. So what they could do was to purchase or to supply the no mask by themselves. So all those who came after these 3 security officers were provided with no masks. And I will speak, that incident has stopped. One other incident that sparked some heated argument among the bodies here, the NDC, MPP, and an EC, has to do with a proxy voter who also qualifies as a special voter. After voting, he wanted to vote as proxy for another person who's currently not in the country, but that was protested by the NDC. But it took the EC to explain to them that a said proxy voter is equally a special voter as the owner of the voter. So when he was asked to be verified, I think he sailed through the verification machine and was allowed to vote. But the NDC on that part saying no. One, there's not a verification machine at the police station. they were going to protest. So I will speak now. They are preparing to protest over the proxy voting, which they say is new to them, because if you look at the processes so far, what they were taken through before today, it was spelled out to them that there wouldn't be anything like a proxy voter register at the police station. And the officer who came and voted was not supposed to vote because he was not taken through and for his name to be seen as a proxy voter. The EC said they are satisfied because including the owner of the voter, the vote came to EC office, they were taken through and all the necessary documents were put in place. And surely, when he turned out here today, he came with a document showing that he was instructed by the said voter, owner of the vote to come and cast the vote on his behalf as a proxy voter. So
I'll jump in there. I'll jump in there, Isaac. I will come back to you when you tell us what's behind you. But let's hear the assembly member for the Canteen electoral area, Anapansa Ibrahima, who shared his views on the developments you've just told us about. Allow me to apologize for that. We'll bring you that soundbite subsequently. But Isaac, let's wrap up with you. You wanted to show me something going on behind you?
Yes, I wanted to say that the turnout has been very good, despite the slow turnout in the morning. We are told that those who are still holding the whole process may be security officials who are on duty outside the district. And some of the officials, the agents, are surprised that up to now they have not finished casting their vote because the number is limited, 494, and as we speak, 435 have cast their vote. So as to why there are about 60, 61 have not come out to cast their vote for them to close is why they're all wondering. But the process has been very smooth, and so far, all the party agents, MPP, NDC, and the independent candidate have all no complaint except the verification, the proxy voting, which has to do with both MPP and NDC arguing over it.
Thank you very much. Isaac Nonyade is our correspondent in the Savannah region. Well, a lot is happening across. Let me take you to the central region. Richard Kojonyako is our man on the ground. He's been monitoring the process there. Richard, what's happening in central region?
Well, Gifty, just as has been indicated across the country, in the central region, it is so. The voting actually started at 7. I visited the Commander Negua for a Brim Center at the District Police Service Center. I've also been at the Cape Coast South constituency and the Cape Coast North constituency. At the Cape Coast South constituency, what we witnessed was that a few of the security personnel did not find their names in the special voting list. And so the regional police commander was alerted. And so she told me that she's spoken with the IGP, and these men who did not find their names in the voters register would go and vote on the 7th of December at their various polling stations. So these persons will be stationed in their polling station. They will not be posted elsewhere, but they would be posted where they can vote. But apart from that, everything has gone on smoothly. I've been speaking with a party agent for the MPP, for the NDC. They seem satisfied with everything that has gone on here. Here at the Cape Coast South constituency, where the voting is underway at the police headquarters here, out of the 430 people that are expected to cast their ballots, as of now, 1 hour 30 minutes to close polls, 348 people have cast their ballot, and so there are no queues here. The EC officials are just resting here. You can see them. They are currently resting, taking some rest, and the party people are also waiting under the tree. Same is happening at the Cape Coast North constituency, where the voting is also being done at the Ghana National Fire Service. We've been speaking with the is the director of the electoral services for the region, and then they say that everything is under control. A short while ago, the director of electoral services for the EC, Dr. Srubokweku, in fact, he votes here, and so he came to cast his ballot here as well. So everything is under control.
All right. It looks like a very calm situation there for you. Richard, thank you. When polls close, we'll certainly come to you. But it's not as calm as it is over there at the Krowo constituency. I'll be taking you to northeast, where Elias Utanko is standing by, and to the northern region where Martina Bukri is standing by. But this is something that's just developing, something that's coming in right now. A bit of confusion happening at the Krowo constituency. My colleague Ernest Menu is on the ground. Ernest, tell us about it. Hello, Ernest.
Hello, Gifty, can you hear me?
I hear you now. Please tell us what's happening in Krowo.
Yeah, so a while ago, there was some confusion between the agents and, let me say that, largely the NPP and the NDC. Some of the NDC agents here had accused a lady of taking a shot of her ballot. And, of course, we had some NPP party faithful jump to her defense, and that created confusion. The police had to come in. The lady, as I speak to you, is being interrogated, and this is the third incident, or we are recording of such, people taking a shot of their ballot papers. You know, the ballot is supposed to be cast in secret. Your vote is supposed to be a secret, but then there are people who are taking a shot of their ballot.
Right, and let me just jump in there. I think that there has been a little bit of a contention with it, and I heard over the weekend Dr. Srubokweku indicates that people are now allowed to use their mobile phones, I think, in the box. But then the issue also raised at the time by something who was talking to him then, that the law says it is secret, but it doesn't prevent people from showing it if they want to. So I think a little bit of contention there. But was this lady... I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but those who are alleging that she did she take the phone into the box?
Yes, she had her phone, according to those who are alleged. In fact, I have spoken to the presiding officer. There are two polling stations here because of the numbers, so that we have A and B. The presiding officer says, yes, she was seen with her phone. The police is interrogating the matter. She doesn't want to grant an interview yet. Once they resolve it, she'll give me full briefing of what has happened with this third case and the first two cases. And so as we speak, you see there are two people behind bars who the police is yet to take action on. One of them admitted to it. They have seen the evidence on the phone. The other is a bit of a contention, I should say, and then this third incident.
Interesting. But so far, how has the process been in the areas that you have visited?
Well, it's been quite smooth so far. For the Krowo constituency, I've been here for close to 2 hours, or let me say an hour and a half now, and it was smooth until this incident. When I got here, the first two incidents of people taking a shot of their ballot had been recorded already, and I got a briefing just before I got here, and then this one. But when you go to La, for instance, because of the huge numbers, over 3,000 electorates over there, they have about 6 polling stations there, labeled A to F, and the electoral officials there have managed to group them alphabetically so that it is easy for the police officers. And you can understand, Gifty, because of the barracks, because we have the camp also in that enclave, the Ladade Kotopon has a lot of security installations. And so there are lots of security personnel, high-ranking security, military, police officials, all of them casting their ballots there. It's been smooth because of the integration, because of the division actually they have done, and that has made the process smooth so far. And as at midday when I was, reporting, more than half of the people have voted, and so it's been smooth. Although the deal, interestingly, has been very smooth. Korle-Klottey as well. In fact, at Korle-Klottey, the candidate, the NPP parliamentary candidate, Lawyer Prince Abuaje, is the agent for the presidential election. And so he himself is representing President Akufo-Addo in the constituency. And Bernard Okoboy is representing himself at the Teshi polling station where I visited before moving here to Krowo. So it's been smooth so far, and we only had this incident of a bit of confusion here at Krowo.
Certainly, it's barely 2 hours. I think, let's see. Yeah, barely 2 hours to the close of polls. We'll certainly come back to you. Thank you very much. Ernest Menu there in the Kruwa constituency, where a little bit of confusion occurred a short while ago. We understand that someone is being interrogated at the moment for trying to take a photo of the vote that she cast. I'm going to take you now to the northeast region. We have Eliasu Tanku standing by. Now that region is where Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will be voting. Eliasu, what can you report? Eliasu, do go ahead. We're listening to you. Eliasu, you are muted, so I see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Yes, Gifty, I'm saying it has been very smooth here in the Wale constituency, where we have some 160 people expected to vote or are currently voting in this particular constituency. After the time I checked, over 130 people have cast their vote. And the interesting development we are getting from the Yagaba Kobore constituency, where you remember on Sunday there was violence between supporters of the NDC and MPP. Our sources within the police said even though the voting is ongoing in that particular constituency, about 166 people are expected to vote in that particular area. But according to police, they have intensified security in the area because of some bit of tension between the supporters of the MPP and NDC in the area. What we are learning is that members of the MPP are still angry by the fact that some supporters of the NDC raided the home of the parliamentary candidate and destroyed some properties. They are particularly angry about the destruction of 2 pickup vehicles that have been running operations for the party in that particular constituency. They are also very angry about the destruction of the radio station in that particular community belonging to the MPP. And so because of this, the police said that they have intensified patrol in the area. They have military and police personnel standing by and ensuring that this particular tension will not spiral out of control. But largely, touching base with our correspondent, our reporters in the various constituencies, they have reported a very peaceful elections in all the 6 constituencies across the region.
I see you're trying to catch your breath under the mask there, Eliasu. Thank you very much. We'll leave you. We'll come back to you when the polls close in less than 2 hours. That will happen. Let me take you to the northern region. Martina Bugui has been hanging on for a while. Martina, appreciate the patience there. Tell us what's been happening. You've been reporting, I think, since election brief. What has changed in your area?
Nothing has changed. It's still the same process, very smooth and peaceful. I must say that a lot of people have turned out to cast their vote. Take, for instance, the Tamale South constituency. There are 201 people who are supposed to vote. We have 174 who have cast their votes. At the Tamale Central, we have 664, and so far 525 have cast their votes. When you go to the Sanegu constituency, 622 people are on the register and 425 have registered, have voted so far. I must say that people have turned out massively to cast their vote. It's been a smooth process. All the protocols of COVID-19 being enforced. Those who came in without masks were sent away, and those who wanted to actually vote would have to look for their mask and come back and vote. And so generally, it's been a peaceful day in the northern region capital, Tamale.
Back to you when the polls close. Martina, thank you. Let me bring you to the Upper West region. Rafiq Salam has been talking to Mr. Rashid Pelpo, as well as the NPP's chairperson there. Rafiq, what more can you report?
The guys said
hello,
the yam
Rafiq.
is all.
Okay, this is Zoom for you. You get to hear talks about yam, maybe when we're talking about the elections, but let's quickly go to Rafiq and get what's been happening there. Rafiq, do tell us what's happening.
Hello, Gifty.
Gifty, are you hearing me?
I do hear you. Let's go ahead.
Okay, in the Upper West region here, we have 11 constituencies here and 12 polling centers in the Upper West region here. And I can report to you that in the Upper West region here, a total of 3,459 persons are expected to cast their ballot today. And so in the West Central constituency, 2 polling centers, both of them located around the West Circuit Court. So we have 1A and then 1B. So in 1A, we're having a total of 434 persons expected to cast their ballot. And as I speak to you now, a total of 408, as I speak to you now, a total of 380 have so far cast their ballot in 1A. And so in also 1B, a total of 350 have so far cast their ballot. And so there is generally peaceful here in the Upper West region. As I reported to you, we have some big source of the parties come around to see how the process is moving, and they are moving from one constituency to the other. So we had the regional chairman of the NPP, SB Kangbada, who came around and said that he was happy with the process so far, and so too was the incumbent member of parliament for West Central, Dr. Rashida Sentelbo. So I can report to you that in the Upper West region here, the situation is peaceful and calm, and everything is going on smoothly and successful.
Thank you, Rafik. Rafik there. We'll be catching up with him again. But let me go to the Bono East region. Anas Sabit is our man there. Anas, I understand that over there as well, the NPP seems to be impressed with the process so far. Does the NDC there agree?
They do. I've been engaging constituency and then regional executives of both parties, and none of them has kind of expressed any dissatisfaction with the process so far. They all believe what this is doing today should be replicated on the election day. The general election will be entirely peaceful. So as it stands, both parties, the NPP plus the PNC and the GUM, that's Boom and CPC, who were on the ground throughout, have expressed satisfaction with the exercise so far. It's been largely very peaceful here in the Bono region.
Thank you very much for that update as well. This is your election headquarters. This is The Pulse with me, Gifty and Opia. We've been touching base with our correspondent. In fact, we've done most of them, I should say. Like I said, at 5 p.m. we bring you a simulcast, a radio and television broadcast, where Polls Close will bring you a special one with Evans Mensah. Right now, I want to take a very quick break. When I return, I'll talk to you about ROPA and how Ghanaians living abroad, especially in the United States of America, feel about the next week's election and the fact that they cannot be a part of that process. We'll also talk about tenants and their landlords. If your party wins and you live in a landlord's house whose party lost, what do you do? What does the law even say about that kind of dynamic? We'll talk a bit more about that when we return. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you staying with us. Now, the Representation of the People's Amendment Act, ROPA, passed in 2006, is to allow Ghanaians abroad to exercise their franchise during an election. 14 years on, the law is yet to be implemented, as over 3.5 million citizens living abroad will be left out of next week's elections, which is now, well, barely 6 days away. My colleague Sandra Esna Mafenu has been interacting with some Ghanaians abroad on how they feel about this situation.
Are you surprised that Ghanaians abroad will once again be disenfranchised?
Oh, no, I'm not surprised. I think what's going on is that every political party that is in government that has the chance to implement this bill, the Representation of the People's Amendment Act, actually studies and looks at what it stands to benefit from it before they make any moves. The Electoral Commission actually had the implementation of the bill in its 2020 budget. but somehow ended up not implementing it this year. I think the most recent excuse that they have given is that there was a change in the leadership of the Electoral Commission. But I find the excuse to be quite frivolous because the change in the commissioner did not stop the planning for the general elections. Why does it stop the planning for the implementation of the Representation of the People's Amendment Act? Because there were people actually appointed to specifically see to the implementation of the bill. But I think that somewhere along the line, the Electoral Commission decided that they were going to implement a new voters register, which had a lot of issues in terms of attempting to disenfranchise some of the people across the border.
Are you disappointed that this has not been implemented? And would you have voted anyway?
Definitely. I mean, when I'm in Ghana, I did vote. I mean, first of all, I don't even know why President Akufo-Addo changed the Electoral Commission. First of all, I mean, you won. Was it Charlotte to say, was that the name? So I don't really get that. I mean, if she was doing anything wrong against you, then how come you won? If we go by that logic, the NPP. So that alone also raises some suspicions. I'm not saying people cannot be fair, whether they belong to NPP or NDC. But why didn't we build the capacity, I mean, the EEC, to build capacity from within and let them promote whoever is in their leadership? So we see it as an institution, not as somebody coming in from outside, you want to bring a new head. But we are very fond of doing that in Ghana. Like, we think changing the name or changing the head will make any difference. No, it is the capacity that you have to build in that institution that really builds it to the level that everybody will be happy with.
NPP has a lot of followings abroad. You are having to travel back to Ghana on Sunday because of the elections, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So how do your members feel about being left out of the process?
It's hard because I know a lot of people here who would have loved to be home to vote, but then financially wise, some can't go because you have to leave your job, you have bills to pay, you have to buy airline ticket, you have to have money that you're going to money on you to spend, and you can't just go to Ghana empty-handed.
How much is it going to cost you to get to Ghana for voting?
I mean, it depends. I mean, the flight I'm taking, economy, I think I'm paying $1,600.
John, is it too much to allow Ghanaians abroad to vote, or to allow the procedural requirements for such a process? And how does it work?
Well, there are some countries that we can look at, like Senegal, Sierra Leone, Cape Verde, South Africa, that you guys have mentioned, that are all in Africa. I think for the case of Senegal, what they did was they started by identifying any country in which they had more than 500 or potentially more than 500 of its citizens living there. And then they would open up a registration center. At the end of the registration process, if you had more than 500 people registering to vote, then you would get a polling station during elections. The volunteers, the polling agents, are mostly some of their students who are in those countries, and even some of those people who registered to vote. And you're not going to run into a shortage of these people. In the case of, say, Cape Verde, they had a concern where there are actually more Cape Verdeans living outside the country than those who live in the country. And so there were concerns that the people who live outside the country might change results of a national election if they're allowed to vote. And so they started off by implementing a formula where the vote of a person living outside Cape Verde was worth 3/5 of the vote of a person living inside Cape Verde. And so you're not entirely disenfranchising the people, but you're also making sure that the people living outside the country are not completely changing the results of the elections within the country. For Ghana, we're blessed with more than 3 million people living outside the country, like I said. And in fact, we should want to implement raw power because most of these people send in enough remittances that are as high as the annual GDP of Ghana. The annual remittances of Ghanaians living abroad to Ghana are about $5 billion a year, which is about the same amount as Ghana's annual GDP. These people who send in the monies have the same concerns that Ghanaians living in Ghana have, which is whether the investment projects are going into friendly business environments, whether the government is allowing businesses to grow, what are the tax rates, and all these issues that Ghanaians complain about. And so giving them a chance to have a say in who becomes president of Ghana.
All right there. So Sandra, the international woman there, talking to some international Ghanaians about the fact that they won't be, unfortunately, they won't be able to vote next week. But we are here, we'll be voting. So let's domesticate the conversation a little bit more. We want to talk about the fact that in 6 days, all Ghanaians, of course, of sound mind, 18 years and above, will be in a queue and will be trying to elect a leader. And from experience, and depending on which party wins the election, there is a possibility. We have seen that happen for rancor between landlords and their tenants. And that usually happens if they both belong to different political parties, and especially if the tenant supports the winning team and the landlord's party loses. So in some cases, we've seen tenants being thrown out, sometimes for jubilating after the declaration of results. So if you have not paid your rent at that time, that's a different story altogether. It could be worse. But what does the law say about this? The Public Relations Officer for the Rent Control Department of Ghana, Emmanuel Posu, is joining me in the studio. Mr. Posu, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gifty.
But before we start the conversation, I want to hear from you. If you have a similar story, or you know someone who has been there, I want to hear from you. Send us a message on 0540-109009. Now, 0540-109009. If you're a regular texter, you already have this number. So send us a message. Mr. Posu, let me start by asking, is there any legal regime around this, how landlords and tenants can behave towards each other when it comes to election? I don't think so.
Okay. So, Gifty, if we will start with, Chapter 5 of the Constitution gives us as Ghanaians the right, that's the fundamental human right and freedom. So, for your permission, it says, when you look at Article 12.2, it states, every person in Ghana, whatever his race, place of origin, political opinion, that's where the emphasis is. Okay. Political opinion, color, religion, creed, or gender shall be entitled to the fundamental human rights and freedoms of the individual.
Sorry for that interruption. Please do not call our number.
Contained in this chapter, but subject to respect for the right and freedom of the other and then the public interest. So we all have our fundamental human rights based on our political ideologies. But in exercising our political freedom, we have to think about the other person's also freedom and also the public interest. But when it comes specifically to the Rent Act, there are offenses that has been laid. When you look at Section 25, it has stipulated all the offenses that when you committed and you go before the magistrate, you'll be sanctioned according to what the law has specified. Okay. So specifically, if you look at Section 25, 1B, it states, every person who in respect of any premises demand or receive any condition, whether in money or in kind, or in any other manner whatsoever, or whether by way of rent, fine, premium, or otherwise, for the grant, renewal, continuance, or assessment of any tenancy, commits an offense. So let's put this in perspective. Okay. So as a political party or as an individual, you may go and rent somebody's house. The landlord may be in a different party. You also be in a different party. Yeah. You have the right to exercise your political opinion and then just be free. But just as I said, when you are jubilating or you are even going out for campaign, you have to make sure that you don't cause annoyance to your fellow landlord or adjacent tenant.
What constitutes annoyance?
Yes, but over-jubilating.
And what is over-jubilating?
Over-jubilating is when you have to go out, you have the right to wear your political dress, but you don't have to use it to, how to describe it? Use it to mock somebody. Let's assume your party has also won and you are going out to jubilate. You don't have to do this to mock your landlord or mock your fellow tenant. Because if you cause this, you will be causing annoyance to them. But that annoyance cannot be determined by the landlord in your house. If such thing happens, what the landlord has to do is to report to the rent control. We'll do an investigation and then make a determination. So it's not up to the landlord to sit somewhere and then think that a tenant is causing nuisance. So I'm forcefully, by myself, ejecting the tenant. In all cases, if a tenant commits an offense in your opinion as a landlord, you don't have the right to forcefully eject the tenant by removing the tenant's property and belongings outside. What you need to do is to report to the rent control department, where we'll do the investigation and then make the determination. Also, if you look at Section 17, it has laid down the process under which a landlord can evict a tenant.
Okay.
So all those things are there. So what we are saying is, during this political era, landlords should be careful how they treat their tenants.
Okay.
Tenants should also be careful how they behave before their landlord. So that we will live within harmony within this period. Because election will come, election will go. But we will all stay as family, we will all stay in people's houses and premises. We will all rent houses to people. So let's be careful how we behave during this period.
During elections, usually, do you record, to what extent do you record some of these cases where landlords feel like my party lost, your party won, and I feel you over-jubilated, so I'm sacking you? Is this something that usually happens?
Yeah, it happens. When I was coming, a news just came to me that a tenant with a baby has been thrown out by a landlord just because the landlord was forcing the tenant to join his party.
Why?
And the lady refuses. The unfortunate thing I read, which I don't know the source yet, was that the tenant was owing. So in this circumstance, we can dwell on the rent that the tenant was owing, because the act states that the tenant has no right to owe any landlord for even a month.
Okay.
So therefore, you can stand on this and apply for what we call recovery of possession. It's even not your power as a landlord to pack the belongings of the tenants out of there, which constitutes an offense.
So I'm a landlord. You owe me for more than a month. You have not spoken to me. Even if I want to sack you, I can't do that until I make a report to the rent control. So in this case, where the woman owes, and what if she is just saying that the landlord tried to push her into his party, but she actually is lying? How do you investigate that? Because we know that the rent control also has its own issues in terms of resources.
No, in terms of resources, but that does not take the fact that we are doing what we are expected to do, even with our limited resources. What the case study we are analyzing now is, even if that's why we invite both the landlord and the tenant. We listen to both of them before we make any determination.
Okay.
So in such cases, we cannot just sit somewhere and then adjudicate a case or take a decision. We still have to invite the two parties, listen to them, and then before we come to conclusion on who is at fault or who is not at fault.
So in the case that her things have been thrown out, what do? Do you get the room back for her?
Yes, if the woman needs to come to the rent control and then make the complaint, because this falls under what we call an inducement or false adjustment. And what you are saying, the law does not permit any landlord to forcefully eject any tenant from his or a premises. The first thing is to report to the rent control if an offense has been committed in your opinion. We will do the investigation, make the recommendation, and then order the tenant to move from your premises.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm asking people to send me messages, and the messages are coming in really fast, so it's making it a bit difficult to focus. But let me see which one I can get quickly. Okay, this one said, my landlord was talking to me harshly because he suspected I want to vote against his party. Hence, he had an unfriendly attitude towards me. Okay, he has just deleted the message, but he says, because I felt I went home to vote against. Okay, I'm not quite sure, but you're texting from Bolga, and he says that his landlord had what he's calling a hostile attitude towards him.
Okay.
this one is a hostile attitude. Okay. How do you determine that?
Yeah, but this falls under Section 27, which is an offense to induce tenants to quit. So every person who shall do any act whatsoever or refrain from doing anything which the condition of the tenancy requires him to do, with intent to compel the lessee of any premises to give up possession thereof, shall be guilty of an offense, and shall, on conviction by the appropriate magistrate, be liable to a fine not exceeding 50 penalty units. So if we draw a tenancy, and the tenancy you don't state in there that we are going this direction, and then we've signed the tenancy already, and then you come that now we are moving into this direction, it constitutes an offense. And in this case, you are just inducing the tenant to quit. And this constitutes an offense. And if you are laid before the magistrate, the penalty unit is there for the magistrate to impose on you.
Okay, we need to wrap up because we've run out of time. But of course, the shorter, the better. Then it sticks with you more. I'll just take some of the messages. This one says, do landlords have the capacity to determine what is nuisance and forcibly eject a tenant?
No, that's what I've just said.
It has to be stated in the...
It has to be, but anything that is stated in the tenancy agreement must be in consonant with the Act, or even with the Constitution of Ghana. So anything that is stated there, if it's not in consonant, when it comes before us, we push it aside. We take the Act and then we act on it.
This one says...
Let me just answer. I've just stated that even if an offense is committed, you, the landlord, has no right to determine the grievance of the offense. You have to report to the rent control. We will make an investigation and you don't have the right to forcefully eject any tenant from your premises. Okay. Yes.
I'll read a few of your messages and then we take it away from there. This one says, good evening. My landlord belongs to one of the political parties and I am not. We are about 7 tenants in the house, but I'm the only one who doesn't show up. I'm always cool. I don't deal with party colors because I know the kind of landlord I'm living with. This is Seth in Dansoman. He says, I know we can't stop people from jubilating when their party wins. But I'll advise all tenants to be very careful because some of the landlords are something, whether you are owing or not. If they know you don't belong to their party, they will throw you out. But if that happens, you can report to the rent control. Exactly. If that happens, you can report to the rent control. This one said, Gifty, the same thing happened to me before, where my rent was increased 2 times. So this time around, I have paid the rent in advance to avoid this one. This one says, today's election could have been better. Okay, you're talking about missing names on the register. You're talking about the elections generally. Thank you. We're just talking about rent and the elections right now. And I'm wrapping up. I'll just take his final thoughts. But because we've asked you to send your messages, I want to read some of them. This one says, it is easier said than done. And I'm sure this one goes to you. So they always talk nicely when given the chance, but implementation is a problem. Some landlords are still demanding 2 years in advance, which is against the law. Please ask him how far they are going with such issues. But let's wrap this up with your final comments as you answer this question. Just put in an advice for people going into the election, what you can do, what you can't do. First. Yeah.
Okay, so quick one before that. There is a message for increment of rent.
Yes.
Let me state here that no landlord has the right to be increasing rent as and when he or she wants.
After 2 years?
After 2 years, but even that, you have to come for an assessment where we'll come and assess the place and give you the rent or the rate at which you have to charge your premises. And secondly, with the 2 years advance, we've made several progress. The progress we've made, we've been able to sanction some landlords who have charged more than 6 months rent. We are calling our tenants who, the law demands that the landlord has no right to demand or receive more than 6 months rent if it's a long tenancy. So if a landlord has demanded or has even collected more than 6 months from you, report to the rent control department because we cannot be everywhere. So report to them, we'll invite the landlord and then the necessary action will be taken. On the advice.
So advice, yes.
Yes. On the advice, that's what you are saying is, we all have our fundamental human rights and freedom. But in exercising it, you have to consider the right of the other person. And then you have to consider also the public interest. So if you are jubilating, make sure it doesn't cause annoyance to your fellow tenant or to the landlord. And landlords too, you can't impose certain restrictions on your tenant based on the fact that he or she has come to pay money and is dwelling in your premises. This falls under what we call an inducement. You are inducing the tenant that if you cannot join my party, then leave my house. It's an offense. If we lay you before the magistrate, you'll be sanctioned or you'll be penalized. Yes.
So that's the public relations officer for the Rent Control Department, Emmanuel Hove Bosu. They're sharing with you some advice. And Ajimai, I'll end with Ajimai's message. He said he's speaking from Seshri Sam. He says, I was at the University of Development Studies. I couldn't talk during election 2016 because I didn't know my landlord's party. Let's be wise. Jubilation after a party wins for the party knows you not. Okay. Says the party knows you not, so don't get evicted because of the party. But if anything like that happens, you got an advice. You can go to the rent control and lodge a complaint. Mr. Kosu, thank you very much for coming. As we go along, we'll see if we have to repeat some of these. This is still the Pulse with me, Gifty and Opia. Today, by the way, is World AIDS Day, and we still have people living with HIV/AIDS. How have we worked on this as a country? How is our work going so far? We did very well in the past. Some people have said it looks like we're letting down our guard. We'll talk to some people when we return. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. And I must say that I'm still receiving many of your messages on rent. Certainly we'll bring that conversation back at some point. Right now, I want to talk about HIV and AIDS. Now, the Ghana Health Service is pushing for the implementation of strategies needed to increase treatment and also improve care service for persons living with HIV and AIDS. Addressing a webinar to commemorate World AIDS Day today, Director General Dr. Patrick Kuma Yeboaje revealed that Ghana has over 300,000 persons living with HIV/AIDS, with 20,000 annual infections and 14,000 HIV-related deaths. He says this worrying trend constitutes a major health crisis, but can't be contained if stakeholders do not relax with their response approaches. The Director General of the AIDS Commission, Chairman Etuahene, noted an upscale of testing, especially among men, is ongoing. He adds that a human rights-based response and funding avenues are also being made available to address issues of social protection and access to treatment. I'm going to speak with two people, Dr. Kofi Odoelabi. He's a medical officer at WAAF, and Kwabena Otu, who is a counselor as well. Gentlemen, you're welcome and thank you very much. Help me with WAAF.
Okay, so WAAF stands for West African AIDS Foundation. And it's an NGO that was set up in 1999. Okay. Basically, they provide education, advocacy, testing, outreaches of diseases, infectious diseases such as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and in general, chronic diseases that affect the general public. So they work together with IHCC, International Healthcare Center, a clinic, to provide these services to the community and to the general public.
Okay. So let me start with the statistics, or if you like, the overview, the problem overview that we just put out there. According to the Ghana Health Service, we are in a crisis. I don't know which of you is Dr. Odoelabi. Must be you. Okay, so this is a health crisis as the Health Service is describing it. Why are we here? I thought we've done a lot of work already in this area.
Yeah, so yes, a lot of work has been done by the Ghana Health Service, but there is still a lot more to be done. If you look at the statistics that was mentioned this year and then contrasting it against the goal by the UN AIDS, which was to achieve the 90-90-90 target by 2020, you can see that we are still way behind and there's still a lot more work to be done. Yes.
Let me bring you Mr. Otu. Are you Mr. Otu, right? You are a counselor.
Yes.
You counsel people who have who live with HIV?
Yes.
Why, when you talk to them, do you think we're still experiencing this prevalence?
Actually, what happens is, the education in our country, the education level is gone down. And then even in schools and in churches, when you mention HIV, they are like, hey, This guy want to impose HIV on us.
So they don't. We don't want to talk about it.
Yes, we don't want to,
as a country. We don't want to talk about it. We used to back as we used to back then.
Yes.
Going forward, and because of time, indeed, today has been a lot of election-related activities, and I'm sure we can have this conversation another time. But going forward, what can we do to improve upon the education, if that is what we have to do to get people sensitized?
Actually, what we can do now is to start the education from our schools, okay, and then to our churches.
Who
and
will you task with that responsibility? The AIDS Commission,
okay.
the media, I mean, who?
The AIDS Commission plus the Ministry of, Education, Ministry of Education, and yes.
Okay.
They should, help with that.
Everyone want to come in.
I'm just going to take your final words for this one, yours, and then we'll bring in Ms. Otu to end it all.
Yeah, so to add to what he said, one reason why we are still having some challenges, especially has to do with the issue of stigma.
Okay.
A lot of people are unable to come out to disclose their status because of the myths and fears people have regarding the HIV virus.
I thought we moved past that a long time ago.
Surprisingly, it's still there.
Okay.
Still there. We have people who are partners who have been in relationships for many years, and they still find it difficult to disclose to their partners because it may end up breaking up the family, etc. So we should look at dispelling these myths, and he rightly said education, right down from the secondary level, because at that point they are more sexually active. We let them know this is HIV. We look at even including it in their curriculum, because I remember when I was in secondary school, we used to learn about cholera, we used to learn about malaria.
So you think we should put it there?
Yes, I think we should put it there. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We'll end it at this point here. If you have a quick one to add, we can do that. Otherwise, we can bring up this conversation another time.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. What I want to say is that HIV is real. HIV is real. Let's protect ourselves. There's PrEP today. There are condoms out there. There is ARVs. You know, there are so many ways you can protect yourself.
So the message is protect yourself.
Yeah.
Protect yourself. Just as we're protecting ourselves from COVID-19, we need to protect ourselves from HIV. It is still real and it is still there. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Kwabena Otu is a counselor, and Dr. Odoi Labi as well, there with the West Africa AIDS Foundation. And today is World AIDS Day. And we wish you all the best out there. If you are living with this, take care of yourself. If you are not, protect yourself. There is more news at myjoyonline.com. My name is Gifty Amdo Apia. We have 30 minutes of good sport content, and at 5 we'll bring you what's happening as far as the special voting is concerned. Thank you for your time.